We are now 1 month away from the end of the 2023-24 OHL regular season, and this past week, there was a lot of movement in the OHL Power Rankings because some of the teams near the top suffered some losses, while teams at the bottom getting some points, which is making things very interesting as we head into this final stretch towards the postseason. So let's dive right into it with the OHL Power Rankings for this week. And sitting at number 20, down three positions, it's the Barrie Colts. The Colts, they started the week off with a hard-fought game against the Saginaw Spirit in a 7-6 loss, but then followed that up with losses against Ottawa and Kingston. The game against Ottawa was also very close, similar to what we saw against the Spirit, but they had a hard time at the Leon Center in Kingston against the Frontenacs. The Barrie Colts, they do fall to the bottom because teams around them had decent weeks. They earned points to make up some ground on Barrie. So they're still a ways away from clinching a playoff spot, and that gap, it's shrinking. But they do have some bright spots. Cole Beaudoin, right now riding a 15-game point streak, and the chemistry he has right now with Riley Patterson has been a ton of fun to watch. Patterson, he had a 10-game point streak, which ended Monday against the Kingston Frontenac. So that line continues to get things done. And then when you look at the standings, the Barrie Colts, they're 5 points ahead of Peterborough and 6 ahead of the Niagara Ice Dogs. They hold that final playoff spot in the East. So no panic yet, I'm sure, with the Barrie Colts, but I think for Colt fans, there's some nail biting going on right now, some nervousness. They're in Owen Sound tomorrow, and then they host Mississauga on Saturday before traveling to Oshawa. So the Barrie Colts, they need to get some points if they want to hold on to that playoff spot. At number 19, the Guelph Storm, they have fallen yet another position. The Guelph Storm, it's been tough. This has been a very tough stretch for them. They went 1-3 last week, and that only win was against Peterborough. The Storm, they only have one win over their last 10 games. It just goes to show how hard it's been for them. They're 9 points ahead of Sarnia, who are ninth in the West. So they do have that gap. So I'm not saying that the Guelph Storm are at risk of missing the playoffs, but they need to turn this around because you want to have some momentum going into the playoffs. And if you're just losing games consistently, goal scoring continues to be a struggle. But Braden Gillespie, he's been a bright spot for this team. Another bright spot, though, for the Guelph Storm is in their win against Peterborough. Will McFadden, he had a goal and was named the first star of the game. And this young centerman, he's been getting a lot more ice time with Guelph, and he's starting to show a little more confidence. So a good sign there, Will McFadden. The Guelph Storm, only 2 games this week. They're home to Windsor on Friday before traveling to Erie. Number 18, it's the Peterborough Petes. They have moved up 2 spots. Peterborough moving out of the bottom ranking after going 2-1 last week. So a good run for them. Right now, their one win was against the Kingston Frontenacs, where Chase Lefebvre was the hero. And despite Peterborough's struggles, Lefebvre, he's been pretty steady for them. He's has points in 5 of his last 6 games, so a pretty good overager candidate for next season in Chase Lefebvre for the Peterborough Petes. Peterborough, they do travel north this week. They're going to make stops in Sudbury and Sault Ste. Marie, so not an easy road trip for the Maroon and White. At number 17, it's the Niagara Ice Dogs. They're up 2 positions as well. You can't count Niagara out yet. They went 2-2 last week, including an overtime win over the Oshawa Generals, who are one of the higher-ranked teams in the Eastern Conference. Niagara, they may be at the bottom of the Eastern Conference standings, but they do find themselves 6 points behind Barrie for 8th. However, the Barrie Colts, they do have 3 games in hand on Niagara. So the chances looking slim that Niagara makes the playoffs, but it's good to see that they're putting in an effort to try and claw their way back into the playoff picture in the East. So for the Niagara Ice Dogs, Kevin Heat, he's been steady for the Niagara Ice Dogs. He's now at 27 goals on the season. He's been a great player to watch with the Ice Dogs. Niagara, they are in Mississauga on Friday before hosting Kingston. At number 16, the Erie Otters, they fell another 2 spots. Erie, they went 1-2-0-1 last week. They managed to snap their 5-game losing streak with a 4-2 win over Guelph. But this is an Otters team that should make the playoffs, but with Ben Goudreau still out due to injury, it could go down to the wire for this team. Erie right now 5 points ahead of Sarnia, so they need to desperately turn things around. The Otters, they play 2 games at home this week against Guelph and Kingston. At number 15, it's the Sarnia Sting. They fell 2 positions this week. They had a crucial home and home series last week against Flint and lost both of those games and then fell 7-3 to the Sioux Greyhounds. So not the best of weeks for Sarnia. This is a young Sarnia team that still has a shot at making the playoffs. They're 4 points back of the Firebirds and 5 back of Erie. The schedule, though, it does not get any easier for Sarnia. They have to visit Kitchener before hosting North Bay. So 2 very strong teams coming up for them. At number 14, it's the Kingston Frontenacs. They're up 2 spots this week. The Frontenacs, they need points, and they did well in doing so, going 2-1-1, so 5 of a possible 8 points last week. And right now, they are 9 points ahead of Barrie, and that includes the Family Day win over the Colts. That was a big win for them. Cal Ewens, he was solid in the win against Barrie for Kingston yesterday. 2 goals and an assist, good for 3 points. That was his best offensive performance this season for the Frontenacs. So it's great to see the blue line for Kingston contributing, and was a big factor in that win yesterday at the Leon Center. The Frontenacs, they do have 3 games this week. They're going to host London before traveling to Niagara and Erie. At number 13, it's the Windsor Spitfires. They're up 2 positions this week. Windsor may be at the bottom of the Western Conference standings, but they're staying competitive. They went 1-1-1 and 1. They find themselves right now 11 points out of a playoff spot. But say you took the Windsor Spitfires and you move them into the Eastern Conference, they would only be 4 points out of a playoff spot. So that goes to show the difference between the West and the East this year. We've been talking a lot about how the powers have swayed to the West, kind of like it used to be a few years ago. Last year, the power was in the Eastern Conference, but this offseason, it made a shift. And it even shows the teams at the bottom of the standings how they could probably compete for a playoff spot if they were in the East. But that's not how it works. You need to get your points and win your games in your conference. And for Windsor, right now, looking on the outside, looking in for playoffs. But as a Windsor fan, you got to be a little encouraged just to see that your team's competing. They're putting in the effort, getting the points, trying to, get back into the playoff picture. Right now, very unlikely for Windsor, but still, there's not much more you can ask for, that you get an effort night in and night out. Ryan Abraham, he's been playing really well for Windsor. He's got 5 goals, 2 assists, good for 7 points over his last 5 games, and that includes a hat trick against the Brantford Bulldogs. Windsor, they'll continue to look to play spoiler as they travel to Guelph and Owen Sound this weekend. At number 12, we have the Mississauga Steelheads. They're down 3 positions. Mississauga, they had a good week going 2-0-1. They only fell because they were passed by a team on a pretty significant winning streak, and other teams around them also getting points. So Mississauga, they're showing that they can be a threat in the Eastern Conference. Goal scoring has not been an issue for them. Jack Van Volsen, he had 2 goals and an assist last week, while Angus McDonnell, a hat trick in the overtime loss against Kitchener. So the Steelheads, they do have a 3-3 this week, starting at home against Niagara. They then travel to Barrie before hosting Sudbury. At number 11, we have the Owen Sound Attack. They're also down 1 spot this week. The week started well with a win in overtime against Oshawa, and then they lost 3 in a row. The Attack managed just 5 goals over 4 games last week, which is not good enough. Colby Barlow, he is doing what he can for the Owen Sound Attack, 31 goals in 37 games. That's a phenomenal pace. But this team should make the playoffs, but right now, they only have an 8-point lead over the 9th place Sarnia Sting. So Sarnia is in their rearview mirror, but it's how can Owen Sound change their fortunes right now? They need goals. They're getting goaltending from Carter George, but they need everybody up front to contribute and to get those victories. The Owen Sound Attack, they only have 2 home games this week. They're going to be at home tomorrow against Barrie before hosting Windsor. At number 10, it's the Flint Firebirds. They're up 1 spot. The Firebirds, they might be near the bottom of the Western Conference standings, but this team, they're riding a 5-game winning streak. They went 3-0 last week. I know some might say they played weaker opponents during this winning streak, but a win's a win. And this team right now, they're determined to make the playoffs. They're making it count right now out on the ice. Nolan Dan, he continues to get the job done. His point streak has now reached 10 games. The big test, though, will be tomorrow night. They travel to Saginaw to face the Spirit before hosting Brantford and North Bay, who are 2 of the top teams right now in the East. So we'll see how legit this winning streak is right now for the Flint Firebirds. At number 9, the North Bay Battalion, they fell 3 positions. The Battalion started the week with a 3-2 win over Ottawa, and then dropped 2 in a row against Saginaw and Ottawa. The Battalion, they are a threat in the Central Division, but the competition, it is fierce in this final push to the playoffs. 6 points back of the Sudbury Wolves for top spot in the division. However, they got some good news. Ty Nelson returned to the lineup over the weekend, which is great to see. North Bay, they are on the road for 3 in a row this week. They're going to be in Saginaw, Flint, and then Sarnia. At number 8, the Brantford Bulldogs, they fell one position this week. The Bulldogs, they did have a great week. They went 4-0, but were passed by another team on a winning streak. Brantford, they also clinched a playoff spot yesterday. So the Brantford Civic Center, it's going to be loud this spring. Clinching home ice advantage would be huge for this team, and I'm sure right now the Bulldogs focused on that because they're right now holding on a top spot in that East Division. I also really like the play of Mateo Drobak in net. I think he's probably one of the more underrated goaltenders in the OHL. He earned a 24-save shutout against Owen Sound and then made a 32-save win against the Niagara Ice Dogs to follow that up. So Mateo Drobak, I don't know if he gets enough attention, but kudos to him. He's doing a great job there in the crease for the Brantford Bulldogs. For Brantford, they're on the road this week. They're in Flint and then Saginaw. At number 7, it's the Kitchener Rangers, and they are up 5 spots this week. The Rangers, the biggest mover this week, they went 4-0. And is Kitchener back? Are we seeing the team that was exceeding expectations before the Christmas break? We'll have to wait and see, but they did put up 6 goals in their win against Mississauga, 6 against Sudbury, and then 6 against Peterborough. So the goal scoring seems to be back. Carson Rakoff, who he kind of went quiet. He earned 5 goals in his last 3 games, now 45 on the season, which leads the league. So if you have Carson Rakoff firing on all cylinders, plus all their other key contributors like Brustevich and Edward Chalet and Misljevic and Anofsky, the list goes on, this team should be competitive in the West. So facing a little adversity there for the last couple of weeks, seems like they might be back on pace. So we'll have to wait and see how it plays out from here on to the end of the season. They're still looking to clinch a playoff spot. The Rangers, they do host Sarnia Friday before traveling to Sault Ste. Marie Sunday. That's going to be a big game Sunday afternoon at the GFL Memorial Center. At number 6, we have the Saginaw Spirit. They fell 4 spots this week. It was not an easy road trip for Saginaw, but they managed to go 2-1. It started with a very sloppy 7-6 win on the road in Barrie. This team, though, they have so much talent, but the turnovers proved to be costly, and also the frustrations may have got the better of them. Braden Hache was in the penalty box quite a bit, and he was just getting agitated by players like Kayshawn Aitchison and company. So I don't know if Saginaw was just thought this was going to be an easy win for them in Barrie, but the team did come back. Well, they ended up losing at Sudbury before winning at the end against the North Bay Battalion. But this is a Saginaw team. They're probably going to have a deep playoff run. I would not be surprised. But they do have 3 home games this week. They're against Flint, North Bay, and Brantford. So a good rematch there with the Battalion coming up. At number 5, the Ottawa 67s. They're up 3 spots this week. The 67s, 2-2. But as average as their week looks on paper, this team's been playing some pretty good hockey of late. Only 2 regulation losses over their last 10 games, which is pretty spectacular. Luca Pinelli, now 40 goals on the season, puts him 3rd in the league. As long as Ottawa avoids the Kingston Frontenacs, this team should do well the rest of the way. If you look at the record against Kingston so far this season, they are 1-5-1 against the Frontenacs, and that one victory was in overtime. So if Ottawa can avoid Kingston, that'd be a good sign for them. Ottawa, they play 2 at home this week against Oshawa and London, so 2 very big games coming up. At number 4, we have the Sudbury Wolves. They fell 1 position. The Wolves, they went 2-1-1 last week, and that was without Quentin Musty. He's dealing with what sounds like a shoulder injury. He suffered that in the game against Sault Ste. Marie to start the week. The Wolves, they had a very impressive win against Saginaw, which could be a league final preview, maybe, depending on how things play out. But one thing that is a concern may have been their loss in Kitchener, where the Rangers limited the Wolves to just 1 goal. That hasn't happened since January 10th. So could teams be finding a way to maybe slow down this offense, or was it a one-off because of some injuries? We'll have to wait and see over these coming weeks. But the Sudbury Wolves, they host Peterborough Friday before traveling to Mississauga on Sunday. At number 3, the Oshawa Generals, they are back up 2 positions. Oshawa kind of benefited from Saginaw and Sudbury having some tough losses, but But this Generals team did go 2-0-1-1, so 6 of a possible 8 points. Connor Lockhart, of course, returned to the lineup, which I think will help the Oshawa offense as they push for home ice in the playoffs. Jacob Oster, he's also been solid in net for the Generals. He's second in goals against average at 286. He also has a 905 save percentage, which is fourth overall in the league. The Oshawa Generals, they are in Ottawa Friday before they host Barrie on Sunday. At number 2, the Sioux Greyhounds. They're up 2 spots this week. What a week for the Sioux. They went 3-1. That includes an 8-2 win on the road against the London Knights, snapping their 23-game point streak. Then they followed that up with a 6-4 loss in Windsor. So that loss kept the Sioux Greyhounds from taking the number 1 spot in the power rankings. I'm just going to say it right now. This is a very good Greyhounds team. They could push for top spot in the power rankings if they can get another run going. Jack Beck, solid in the win against the Knights, where he had a goal and 3 assists. Well, Gavin Hayes, 4 goals and an assist, good for 5 points over his last 4 games. So a really good job for Gavin Hayes. The Sioux, they're at home for 2. They're going to take on the Peterborough Petes and then the Kitchener Rangers. And that leaves us at number 1, no change, the London Knights. They're the only team not to move this week. The Knights, they've been number 1 now for 7 weeks. Their 23-game point streak, yes, it was snapped by the Greyhounds, but then they pulled off 2 wins in Owen Sound and Windsor. So a good response after that tough loss at home. This team continues to roll. We'll see what happens next for them. One thing that's been pointed out is how this team's kind of turned it around since Landon Sim joined the team. Sim, he joined the lineup December 5th, and the Knights have only lost 2 games in regulation since, both of those against the Greyhounds. So the St. Louis Blues prospect, 9 goals, 16 assists, good for 25 points in 29 games. And maybe we can credit Landon Sim for the player that's helped this team have this amazing run to climb to top spot in the Ontario Hockey League season. The Knights, they are on the road for 2 games this week. They're in the East Division, visiting the Kingston Frontenacs and the Ottawa 67s. So that's the power rankings for February 20th. I'm trying to keep my breath here. But let me know in the comments section down below your thoughts on the power rankings. What are your thoughts on teams that are moving up, moving down? Love to see the interaction. Thanks again for tuning in. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe, and we'll talk to you again soon.